بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله سيدنا محمد أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين. Welcome to the second part of the first day of our 10th Saudi Society of Rheumatology Conference. Now I know you came just from lunch وكل البلد فين رايح؟ في السtomach. Okay, معلش سامحوني. So I'm going to try to make it short and sweet. I'm going to go up to the point from the clinical practice, what things will matter for you in your patient. So these are my disclosures. I'll start with a case, and please pay attention to the case and tell me what you want to do, given the fact we're a small audience. This is a 36-year-old gentleman who presented since 2008. He had been having symptoms of generalized aches and pain, and he was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. Then he noticed that there was a swelling in his DIP. Dr. Abdelaziz, معنا? Then he noticed that he had swelling on the DIPs. And he went to our colleague from orthopedic surgeon who told him that this is gout and osteoarthritis, and you only need NSAIDs on and off for treatment. So he was fine with that, but he noticed that he's not getting better. The pain is not better. The swelling are still there. And the generalized aches and pain are there. He went again to the orthopedic surgeon, and he told him, it's fibromyalgia. Say, fantastic, fine, but I'm not getting better. He used to work at the university, and you know what? He was having so much fatigue just to go from the parking lot to the building. And unfortunately, there isn't anything except NSAIDs that he could take. Now, he noticed there was a weird skin rash on his foot. He went for the dermatologist, and he told him, you know what? I think you should see a rheumatologist. And I really thank that the dermatologist who gave him that suggestion. So the rheumatologist who saw him, he said, well, you don't have an active signs of inflammation. There is no active arthritis or even synovitis by the ultrasound. So you do have fibromyalgia. So one day I was in my clinic, and it was after the summer vacation. And he told me, Doctora, if this is fibromyalgia, he showed me his hands. Wallahi, I never saw this picture of extensive dactylitis and arthritis except in the textbook of rheumatology. I was shocked. And I told him, no, it's not fibromyalgia. It's something else. This is arthritis. So we did confirm it by the ultrasound. We did the proper investigation. And at that time, I diagnosed him with psoriatic arthritis because the skin lesion turned to be skin psoriasis. And at that point, I told him, you know what? By the way, this was more than 10 years ago. I told him, you're not going to respond to methotrexate. I am going to put you on that. So he refused biologic. He doesn't want anything. So I said, fine, let's go with the methotrexate. And unfortunately, he was intolerant to it. Let's go with leflunomide. He developed LFT abnormalities. And in 2017, finally, after discussion perhaps for 1 year, I repeat, wallahi, almost 1 year, he agreed to be on TNF inhibitors. He improved about 70%, but if you look at the picture, there was still persistent swelling at the extensor surface. And I did an MRI, and it showed an extensor tenosynovitis. So he did have enthesitis, it seemed, from the beginning, based on the tender points, and then went to skin psoriasis, and finally the full-blown psoriatic arthritis with arthritis mutulans. That was back in 2017. And at that time, we only have TNF inhibitor. So I gave him the option, how about if we cycle between one TNF inhibitor? And he said, no, I'm fine. I told him, unfortunately, this is as good as it gets. And then we had the COVID pandemic. At that time, we had many lectures about the IL-17, and I was involved in many of these as well. So when we went back from the COVID pandemic, I told him, how about if we start an IL-17 inhibitor? He said, you're 70% better, but you're still having some fatigue and some pain and so on. Say, I'm okay to go ahead and try. So I started him on Taltz, and this is his picture right now. You could appreciate that the swelling is gone right now at the extensor. You could see his tendon. There's some swelling that decreased, but unfortunately, the deformity is already there. The beauty is, he comes right now to the clinic, he's well-dressed, he's doing exercise, and he's walking from the parking lot to my clinic in full energy. He said, I have an excellent and dramatic response on the IL-17. So let's go into the treatment recommendation for PSA. The GRABA recommendation, what's to distinguish it, it's a domain predominant. And if you look for the position of the IL-17, they all lie in the same line. In other words, they work in all the domain. Because we know PSA, it's a multi-domain disease, and it's very challenging in treating it. Now, the recent EULAR recommendation that have been presented in Milan, yet to be published, and it's under review, stated that if a patient have an active arthritis, you should go with, that is not responding to conventional DMARD, you should go to what? Biological DMARD, with no order of preference. I repeat, with no order of preference. And then you could decide according to the patient. So the decision was made on many head-to-head trials, in which one of them was the SPIRIT head-to-head trials, in which the primary endpoint was the ACR 50 in addition to the PASI 100. And if you look on the left side without methotrexate, on the right side with concomitant methotrexate, you will notice that the adalimumab, first of all, whenever there's a time-response curve, it teaches me what to tell the patient. First of all, you're going to respond dramatically within the first couple of weeks. But we should give it time because it will go and perhaps until 4 months until you have the full-blown response. The beauty over here, you could see that the TALs maintain the response even without methotrexate. But adalimumab, it needed methotrexate in order to augment the response. So that's message number one. You could use it without methotrexate. My patient was intolerant to methotrexate. So I talked to subjectively. What about objectively? Having x-rays. Well, there is indeed decrease about 74% of the x-ray damage. And that's what I tell the patient, susaladum, okay? If you have more extensive medication, I'm able to decrease the erosion for you. We all use the MDA, well, especially in research purposes. Why? Because we said the PSA, it's a multi-domain disease. And to achieve the MDA, you should have 5 out of the 7, and very low disease activity, which is very hard and stringent, you should have 7 out of the 7. So again, the same point, within 52 weeks of time, the adalimumab without methotrexate, it does lose its response, unlike the IL-17 inhibitor, that is the TALs. Now my talk, it's going to be at the end of the day about PSA with a special attention to the enthesitis as well as to the axial involvement. I have been asked by the committee to do that. So if you would like to learn, please join me. And you know what? You have to come a bit early because I'm starting my session early or I'm going to lose my flight, please. Okay? So what's unique about the TALs, by the way, read the GRABA recommendation for the treatment of enthesitis. What's unique about the ixekizumab, that by using the SPARC index, there was a complete resolution of the enthesitis, not by the lead enthesitis index. What about nail involvement? Why am I showing you nail? And nail نخليها للديرما, but because they do have DIP involvement. The take-home message over here, and by the way, this is an actual patient who's before treatment and then 6 months after the treatment. The message I have for you, like this patient, a patient came to me, started on an IL-17, and after 3 months, she noticed that her nails are not better. So she went to another physician who switched her to another IL-17. Why? Look at the time. You need almost 6 months to have the full response. The nail with the DIP involved, يحتاج صبر. And that's what I tell my patient. Don't over switch from one medicine to another. Nail with DIP involvement need longer time. So what about the efficacy? As I always say, I like about the efficacy in the treatment of PSA. What about axial PSA? If we went back to the ASAS recommendation, they stated you could use TNF inhibitor, you could use a JAK inhibitor, or even an IL-17. And again, it depends on the physician with the presence of the extra-articular domain. There was a relative of a patient just right now who was taking my opinion and other colleague with regard to his wife who's having ankylosing spondylitis and the treatment approach. And the good news is, alhamdulillah, we have more than one medicine depending on the complaint of the patient. So looking at the TALs, efficacy in ixekizumab, again, for the biological naive versus the biological experience, you could appreciate it's the same as adalimumab. طيب إذا ليش أنا أفكر فيه? Why do I think about starting it? For another reason. Now, what did I say earlier? We have many medication right now available. What makes us to choose medication A versus B, either the multi-domain or the predominant symptom that the patient having. And if you notice that the main symptom that the patient with axial SPA is complaining of, back pain. Despite if you improve the synovitis at the SI joint, they still have back pain. And that's what the studies have been shown. It acts very quickly within 1 week time to improve the back pain and getting back into action. And 90% improvement with the radiographic progression. What about the safety profile? IL-17, they're quite safe. The only concern was the local site reaction. But you know what? The good news is that the local site reaction decreased by time. Well, I have a better news for you, that right now we have the citrate-free form, and it's going to be available at all of your institution once the citrate formula is depleted or finished. So in summary, ixekizumab represents a valuable treatment option for your PSA as well as ankylosing spondylitis to relieve the symptom as well as radiographic progression. In PSA patient, according to the GABA guideline, it covers all the domain, and it's up to you as a physician to decide which medication to go with. And finally, the safety profile is favorable and tolerated by the patient. And if you would like to obtain more information about the TALs, please scan the QR code and you will find more information. Thank you so much for your attention.